This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 557 of the Dressage Radio Show, official podcast of the United States Dressage Federation on the Horse Radio Network, brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products, TotalSaddleFit.com, and Herm Sprenger. On tonight's show, we will be answering more bidding questions with Vivianne Schmidt from Herm Sprenger. And Karen Isberg updates us on her amateur journey with her horse Oreo. And then Reese and I will answer a listener question for a trainer tip.
This is Reese Koppler-Stanfield from Loxahatchee, Florida.
And this is Philip Parks from Rockwood, Ontario, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show.
Hi, Phil. How are you tonight?
I'm doing fine. I should have said that we've got Glenn here with us as well.
Yes,
so
we have
let me
Glenn
introduce
as well.
him. He's got lots of news going on at the Horse Radio Network. So Glenn, take it away.
Hey, guys. Nothing happening in the world right now. It's kind of boring, huh?
Yeah.
I wish.
So I just wanted to let everybody know that we have. Do you remember the WEG hurricane coverage that we did?
Yes,
that was kind of
We
crazy.
were there.
Yeah. So, and it went kind of viral. Well, yesterday we thought there's kind of a gap in the horse world for people covering the coronavirus. So we have ramped up to full coverage of it, and this is what we're doing in the mornings on Horses in the Morning and my personal page, Facebook page. We're posting updates, and yes, they're a little tongue-in-cheek like the hurricane coverage. You need a little levity in all of this. And then, and I also was posting which events have canceled, but I think the list would be about 1,000 long right now. So in the evenings at 8 o'clock on the Horses in the Morning page, we're doing Facebook Lives. Last night, which would have been Thursday night, we did one with Dr. Jimenez, who's the leading expert in emergency preparedness for horses in the country. And we spent an hour. She went down through how you should be getting your barns prepared if you have outsiders coming into your barn, if you do a boarding barn, if you do a lesson program, what kind of standard operating procedures you should put in place. You should be thinking about who's going to take care of your horses if you're sick and in the hospital, if one of your boarders or your students gets sick and is all over the barn, what do you do then? If everybody gets quarantined for 14 days, do you have enough stuff? You need to be starting to think about all this stuff. And as a result of last night's, we had over 10,000 views, and we've heard from people already with large barns that are acting on it and have put standard operating procedures and have talked to their boarders and are really being proactive about it. And I think at this point, look at what's canceled. Pretty much every sporting event in the world. There's horse events dropping like flies right now. There was probably 100 today that I saw. You got to start thinking about it in your own personal. I would recommend that everybody get at least 2 to 3 weeks of hay. Here in Florida, we work on hay on demand. We don't buy large quantities because it's too expensive. So, get 2 or 3 weeks of feed. Be prepared that if somebody else is taking care of your horses and you can't because you're in quarantine or you're in the hospital, what do you do? So I just think we all have to start thinking about those things, and that's what we're doing with our coverage. Tonight, we're going to, this show is going to be out, but every night at 8 o'clock, we're going to be doing something. Some of it might be a little more fun, and we're just hanging out together because everybody's in isolation and not going to the movies, and you got other fun horse people to hang out with, but we're going to be doing it every night at 8 o'clock on the Horses in the Morning page on Facebook Live.
No, I think
Okay.
it's good. Yeah, we all have to think about it. We actually just had that discussion yesterday. We needed to make sure we had enough feed on demand and here. Again, we're in South Florida at the moment, and what happens if we have to ration it?
And the other thing that people aren't thinking about, what happens if the feed store closes because they've been quarantined? Half of their employees come down with it, and now all of a sudden they have to clean the place and they're shut down. And look at what's happening in Italy. That's the worst case, where all businesses have closed except grocery stores, and there's military in the streets making sure you don't leave your house. That's the whole country of Italy right now. So, that's why you have to take this seriously and really be concerned about it. for 1,000 reasons, but Europe is, that's where we might be heading. So, be concerned. Now, I heard World Cup. I'm hearing rumors. I don't have confirmation yet, but I'm hearing rumors as of the time we're recording this that World Cup might be off, and that makes sense because they can't get them or the horses here because of the travel from Europe ban. I think this is what I think. I think they should send the horses, and you and Philip could ride them. And we'll have designated riders like in baseball.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
We're not quarantined.
Tag me in, coach. I'm ready.
I think that, Charlotte should send her horses over.
Yeah.
I think that should happen. By the way, there was a big event over there. I read this. They had that big event in the Netherlands that they were going to do without fans. And then they decided it's a qualifier for World Cup, I think. And then they decided to cancel it altogether hours before it was starting. Well, I'll tell you, Charlotte and the British got out of there fast. Apparently, they packed the trucks in 10 minutes and flew over to Britain. So, because they were afraid they were going to get locked out of the country.
Wow.
Right.
So they...
Lots to be said about that,
they skedaddled.
Their consideration. Yeah.
For sure.
But I like my pony idea.
What's your pony idea?
They send them over to you, and you ride them.
Okay.
Yes. Phil and I tag us in.
Coronavirus.
That's right.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. We would love that. Well, as of right now, again, Thursday evening, nothing has changed in Wellington. It's Nations Cup week, so there's a lot going on. It'll be interesting to see tomorrow night's the Friday Night Lights, what they do. Nothing has happened yet, but yeah, it's been so far Wellington's business as usual. But we'll see how the weekend progresses.
Well, and I think that's going to depend on the governor. If he comes out, we've got a bunch of new cases in Florida. If he comes out and does the same thing as the other states and says no gatherings over 250 people or whatever, then the decisions are going to be made for him, I think.
Yeah, that's true. That makes sense. So hopefully, it's going to be an interesting week for sure. So, but this is when it's nice to have horses and we're on farms. I like that. Yeah, I don't really have to talk to people.
Right. You still have lots to do on a farm if you.
Yeah, we're still on a farm. So.
Hey, all of these people that are being forced to work at home now are getting to ride their horses. So
I know, right? There are positives sometimes in these things, for sure. Well, tonight I am so happy to have Karen Isberg. She is president of Kentucky Performance Products. We are currently snuggling and sharing one mic together here in Florida. Hi, Karen. I mean, she's literally 2 inches from me. We feel fairly good about our health right now. So
we live with each other for 3 months. I think we've already shared all the germs we can share.
So we are together. There is no pictures currently taken of us, but we are sharing a mic because this is our first segment in Florida. How did that happen?
I don't know. Just because I guess it seems to be just flying by. I just can't believe we only have a few weeks left.
It's crazy. Well, Karen, tell us about your journey with Oreo while we've been here. This has been quite a journey, hasn't it?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it's just so this is the first time that we've done a whole lot of showing, and we've actually done quite a bit. We've done the schooling show at White Fences, and we've done 2 other White Fences shows. And then I said to you, let's go to Global. And you said, okay.
Which Global is if people don't know what Global Dressage Festival, that is where all the CDIs happen. And it's a completely different environment than the environment where we are. In our neighborhood, we have our own venue where we hack to. So the horses, it's a different type situation. The horses have to hack down there. They have to go to the horse show. But Karen and Oreo have been doing that quite a bit since last year. So it's not that intimidating, right?
No,
anymore.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. She can do it. She does it by herself. I can't even get there by myself and my own horses, but Karen can get there by herself. She can warm up. But Global was a totally different venue. We have to go in the trailer. We have to show out of the trailer. It's, you see Stephen Peters riding in the same warm up. Like it's a very, very different experience. So what was that like kind of going to a different venue?
Well, I mean, it was a lot of fun. We went early in the morning. So, I mean, it was actually a whole lot quieter than I thought it was at first. And then that warm-up ring kind of filled up. So, and there were a lot of horses doing a lot of different things in there, but Oreo was very good. He really was. I thought he was excellent there.
Yeah, he really was.
The big tents and all the things going on. And he was very quiet and very cooperative. And so, no, I thought it was really a lot of fun. I was a little more nervous than I usually am. at a horse show just because of where it was. But I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
And it started to rain. We're not.
Oh, I forgot about that.
A lot of rain, not kind of rain, like a lot. So literally, as Karen's warming up, everyone's whipping out umbrellas, throwing coats on. So it was that added to a little fun before the test.
Yeah. Yeah. Oreo saw a guy with an umbrella and stopped dead in the middle of the warm up and was like, "Oh, Mom." And but he went on. He was a good boy and he kept going. So I forgot about that. And I wear glasses. So, I mean, I can't see when it rains. So I had to stop and go over to Reese and we had to find a rag and wipe my glasses off because it wasn't supposed to rain. No, I don't know where that came from.
And Karen, I swear, whenever Karen goes down the center line, it starts to rain. It's kind of a joke now. So we always have a clean rag for her glasses. And I really, my dad is an eye doctor. So I've even said, like, is there like a windshield wiper situation we can work on here? Because she needs windshield wipers for her glasses. So that is a little bit of a challenge when we show in the rain. For sure. So what is that, looking back on that, going to a different venue, this is a very, very, it's a big venue and it's scary. What are some things you learned or maybe you liked what you did or what you would do differently?
Well, should we share what happened since it,
it's up to you.
So I'm usually like the most reliable person in a test. I can go in there and I know my test and I do the test and I can have a horrendous warm up and I go in that ring and I somehow seem to pull it together and do the test. I don't know.
Every time.
It just, Reese just kind of looks at me sometimes and goes, "Well, you really did that. Okay." Well, I went into the ring and I was the person that I followed was an open rider and he had a beautiful, beautiful ride. And Oreo was being really good. And I picked up my trot and I'm coming down the side, getting ready to turn in the ring. And I thought, okay, Oreo, we're going to really do this and we're going to go in there. And I was all psyched. And I was back in my sitting back in my dressage seat, pushing him forward. And halfway through the test, I don't know what happened. I got lost. I forgot I didn't forget where I was going. I just did the wrong thing completely. I left out a whole part of the test. And the judge, rings the bell and I go completely blank, just completely blank. I'm like, nobody was home at all. And they got me going on the next part of the test. But when I got up in front of the judge, there was still nobody home. I was like,
she stuck her tongue out at me at one point.
I was
just
like,
stuck her tongue out.
I didn't know what to do. I was like, okay, I cannot remember where I'm supposed to go, like at all. So by this time, I'm really kind of laughing because I'm like so lost. So the judge, I told the judge, I said, "I'm so sorry. I don't usually forget my test." And she got me started again and we finished. Mm-hmm. And we did pretty well with the rest of the test. And coming down the center line, I'm like, we're just going to kill this hall. We're just going to kill it. And I did get an 8.
Yeah, she got a great last. It was her best center line.
It was just hilarious. And I watched 2 other people that same day do the same thing, get lost. But that had never happened to me before. So that was my experience at Global. But it was
all good. All good. And we only entered one day because we weren't quite sure. It was it's a lot to go over there. So we thought, we should only do one day, but it would have been fun to go back the next day.
The next day and see if I could have gotten it. But it never happened before. So, and I didn't even know what to do. I was looking at Reese like, okay, now what do I do? I mean, I didn't realize I could write up to the judge and say, okay, I'm like really lost. Can you help me?
Yeah. And they're very friendly when that happens.
Yes.
Like you said, it happens actually a lot, especially at that venue because it's so scary. So one of the things, Karen, what would you say that you learned from that maybe you would do differently next time?
Well, I hadn't ridden the test that week. I had, I knew the test. I'd ridden it quite a few times, but I hadn't ridden it that week. I'd ridden it a lot in my mind and I really felt like I knew it. So I would do 2 things. I would ride it that week. And then probably first time in a new venue, I'd probably have somebody read it for me.
Yeah.
So that way, if I got a little lost, I would have something, to fall back on.
Yeah, fallback. And we had talked about it in the warm up and she's like, no, I know it. And you've competed this test mm-hmm. before, but that is tricky here. You think, why didn't you practice the test? Well, that week we had an instructor certification workshop here. So Karen rode in that and had a wonderful lesson with Lilo 4. And here it's a little bit weird because there's so much that goes on that we have to really watch the horses' schedules. And so we had ridden it, but we just and it was also very hot.
Yeah, it was hot that week.
It was hot.
Yeah.
So when we schooled at Global, we rode through parts of the test, but we didn't do it start to finish. So
it was like 93 degrees. And
I
thought my head was, I thought you could fry an egg on my head. It was so hot.
So hot. So, there was a lot of variables, and that happens sometimes. So, which is good. I mean, this was just an open class. There wasn't a qualifying class. I was literally just going and getting an experience at a different venue. So that I think was a good thing to just kind of go and say, okay, this is what we're going to do from now on, and have some different strategies in play. And I think the reading would be very good. And we'll just do that from now on. Because when we're at White Fences down the street, she doesn't need me. But a little support from someone would have been good. So we learned that.
I was just concentrating so hard on making the horse look beautiful that I just kind of forgot where I was going. It's like, oops.
It was. And as a trainer, I learned a lot too on how we were going to, how we'll do things differently next time. So, which is good. Not that we would do a ton differently, but, we'll definitely have some different strategies at a different venue. If we can. Now at a championship or a regionals, obviously we can't read that. But when we can, we'll help her out. We'll give her some assistance from that standpoint. And Karen, anything else kind of that we have so much we've done here in Florida, but what are some things that have been sort of the one thing or something you'd like to share?
Oh gosh, it's just been so much. There's so many opportunities here to watch other people train. Got to watch Scott Hessler give some lessons, and Leela Four. And every time you sit down and you watch one of these top trainers, you walk away with this little tidbit of information. I mean, with each of those trainers, I came out going, oh, I'm going to remember this little bit or piece because, it's going to really help me in the future. So, I mean, Scott Hessler said something to the fellow that was getting the lesson that I was watching. And he said, when you're out there riding your horse, don't just ride around. Always do something to make your horse feel better or be better, and lots of times I think I would find myself out there just trotting around in a circle and thinking to myself, okay, what am I going to do next? Or blah, blah, blah. Whereas now, Scott kind of pops into my head. And of course, you've told me this a million times, but sometimes when a different person says it, it sticks in your head. So now when I get out there, I think, what am I doing to make my horse better right now? What am I doing? What can I do? And it just makes me think about all the exercises we've done. And it makes me kind of check in with the horse. How does he feel? What do I need to get him in front of my leg? Is he listening? Is he bending? And then come up with some strategies of what I can do to fix that in the moment. So it's just little tidbits like that you have the opportunity to learn here that it's amazing.
Well, and I think the other thing is just from your fitness standpoint, right? What have you done? I mean, you've had your fitness and your strength on the saddle is so different than when we came in December or early January.
Oh, well, here, part of it is I brought my dog down with me, and I can't really let him run anywhere. So I'm walking 2 miles a day with my dog.
and helping.
And he walks really fast because he hasn't been out, and he's a pretty energetic dog. And I've also been riding the bike back and forth. So just doing some different things. And I think, when I'm home, I do a lot of barn work, but I think I'm going to go ahead and incorporate some other fitness work in because it's really helped me down here.
Yeah, no, for sure. Mm-hmm. And what would be your favorite event that we've done? Because we've done a lot.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know that I can think of one. I can't. It's been so much, and it's such a whirlwind in my mind. I think it was really fun to go to Global and show there. I think that was just really fun. Even with everything that happened, it was just fun to go down there and experience that. And I think, the rider training that we did, that lesson with Leela was pretty incredible.
Yes, that was awesome.
So that was pretty awesome. She said some things that really helped me. So, and then I had a lesson with Phil, and there's just been one thing after another that's happened here that's been good. So I don't think long lining with Richard. Mm-hmm. That's been amazing for my horse.
Yeah.
It really helped him. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I can think of one thing.
Hard,
it's just there's just
it's
something
every
on.
day. We really do try to do something educational every day. If it's a long lining lesson, obviously we have training every day, but there's always something going on at Global. It's fun, and we really try to take advantage of it. I think this time of the season we're all almost overloaded.
Yeah,
like need to clear out our brains, but in general it's been great. And the difference now in Karen from we've been here 3.5 months. Is just, I guess it's 3 months at this point.
Yeah,
it's incredible. And it's really Disneyland for horses. So, well, Karen, as always, thank you so much for sharing your adventure with Oreo. It has been quite an adventure in the last couple months. And if our listeners have any questions about your journey or about Kentucky Performance Products, how do they find you online?
Well, they can go on our Facebook page, just search Kentucky Performance Products. And I'm on there a lot. So if you have any questions, you can always private message us. You can send an email to info@kpp.com with any kind of questions, and those get forwarded to the people that can help you or me. And then you can call us at 859-873-2974. We're open from 8 to 5 days a week. So if you have questions, just holler at us and we'll be happy to help you.
This Nutrition Minute is brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products, the company that simplifies your search for research-proven nutritional supplements at kppusa.com.
Did you know that easy keepers and horses on restricted diets are often at risk for vitamin and mineral deficiencies? Most easy keepers are maintained on hay, and some get a few handfuls of grain a day, and most of these horses get little to no green grass. Diets that don't include significant levels of green grass or recommended amounts of fortified concentrates just don't supply enough vitamins and minerals. Many horse folks don't realize that hay alone, even high-quality green hay, is not an adequate source of many vitamins. For example, when grass is cut and dried for hay, the vitamins quickly lose their potency. 70% of the vitamin E found in grass is lost in the first week after it is cut for hay. One way to ensure that your special needs horse is getting all the vitamins and minerals he needs is to add a vitamin and mineral supplement to his diet. A well-balanced supplement will provide the nutrients your horse requires without adding unwanted calories, starches, and sugars. Microphase, made by Kentucky Performance Products, is a vitamin and trace mineral supplement that bridges the gap in your feeding program. With Microphase, your horse receives adequate and balanced vitamin and mineral nutrition without unwanted calories or other ingredients. The minerals in Microphase have been chelated, a process that protects minerals during digestion and increases their absorption in the intestine. Microphase provides vitamins, such as vitamin E, in a natural form, so your horse receives optimal results from this supplement.
This Nutritional Minute has been brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products. You can find all of their terrific products at kppusa.com.
Well, tonight we are so happy to have Vivianne Schmidt, Vivian, as we like to call her, the U.S. Sales and Marketing Director for Herm Sprenger on the show. Vivianne, welcome back.
Well, thank you.
We were teasing. It's like Vivianne, bit lady. That you're kind of like Madonna now on the show.
just a bit lady.
I love it. Well, we're so excited to have you back on. So, Phil, we have lots of questions from our listeners and from the auditor page. So, Phil, start us off. You've got questions for us.
Oh, did we ever get a whole bunch of questions? And we answered a few last time we had you on there, Vivian, and we said we'd get back to these. So I think it's about that time. Let me just choose one here. All right, here we go. If a horse constantly plays with the bit in his mouth, does that mean that there's something wrong with the bit, or is it behavioral, or how can you tell if this is a bit problem, or it's just the horse, the way he interacts with the bit? So far, they've tried a couple of bits: loose ring snaffle, French lick snaffle, bull in mouth. So I think this is a good question just to start off with, right? Because maybe you've got a new horse, or it's a 3-year-old, and talk to us a little bit about horse behavior versus problem bitting.
Well, so that's one of those questions where it's always nice to have a trainer that you trust as well, to have the eyes on the ground, to really truly see if it's a horse that is having a mouth and a tongue issue. Playing with a bit inherently isn't necessarily bad. I mean, we talk about wanting the horses to, be soft in the mouth, to be chewing, to be salivating, to be swallowing. So, if a rider has come from riding a horse with a shut down mouth, sometimes playing can actually be not a negative thing. I'm guessing, though, in this question, it probably is excessive playing, and maybe even with the tongue sometimes, even though she didn't specifically ask about the tongue sticking out. I have seen bit changes make a big difference in sort of getting the tongue to quiet down a little bit. But a lot of times it is a training issue, and sometimes then that training issue becomes a habit, and then it's a really, really tough thing to fix. As I'm sure the trainers on the phone call will also be agreeing with me at that point.
Yeah. I think there's sort of a spectrum of tongue playing, bit moving, mouth opening. I guess we can talk a little bit about like the 3-year-olds where we're just introducing the idea of the bit. So I'm always using a double jointed, like a KK snaffle in my first introduction of the bit. And then I tend to give it a couple of weeks, unless there's an excessive thing going on. But I think the horse needs to just have some time to get used to the bit in the mouth, and and some riding, or even just a horse having the bridle on in the stall, and not doing the noseband too tight. They can even eat and chew with it. Because I would prefer the horse to have a little bit extra play in the mouth than to have none at all.
Right. I think all of us who have ridden a horse that's quote unquote dead in the mouth. Right.
Yes. So I've got a
reset it all.
A 5-year-old right now who he went in originally the actually egg butt KK, and the rider who I had start him for me was just like, he pulls on the bit so much, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then when I finally, a few months later got on the horse, I'm like, oh, this is not okay. And so what I did, we just started introducing different bits to him, and I've actually settled on a what is the correct pronunciation, Bowker or Boucher?
Well, it depends on what country you come from.
Yeah. I've heard both, so.
I don't think there is a correct or an incorrect pronunciation. So most common is either a Boucher or a Boucher. I mean, those two seem to be the most common pronunciations, and they're both acceptable.
So just for everybody, Vivian, can you explain that bit and what that means? Because that's
I was just going to say probably why your horse is liking that bit is it's a very stable bit. So sometimes if you have a horse that is being, very playful, I know the person who asked the question has already tried, double versus single broken. Sometimes it can just be that a horse is looking for stability too. And the Boucher, the Boucher bit, because it has the little bit more of a side cheek, does tend to be extremely stable in the horse's mouth. You also do have a little bit of pull pressure on a Boucher, and sometimes that can also help some horses find that contact and that nice connection.
So, you're having this problem, and I think it's really important, kind of as a scientific experiment almost, to really go at it like, okay, I tried the Boucher or the Boucher, I tried a little bit more the D-ring. You could talk a little bit about how you would do that. From how many rides would you give each bit if you were to kind of go down as a decision tree model of if I like it or not? How would you do that?
Right. If I would say a good 2 weeks, and you should get, assuming the average person gets 4 to 5 rides in per week, that gives you 8 to 10 good rides in that bit. And then I would make sure some of those are arena rides. And if you also ride outside, some of those are outside rides. If you're more just working and practicing in the arena, stay in the arena. But that will give you a really good picture of how this is working for yourself and for your horse.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think it's really important to do that and give it a little time. We're literally just having this conversation in my barn for my assistant's horse, who's a thoroughbred, and she's a little bit touchy. And so sometimes having it on for a couple days is important. You get a little bit different data than you would when you first put it on. When you first put it on, her reaction is different than if you just have a few rides. So I think that is important to have a couple rides in the bit to decide, unless the horse clearly doesn't like it. But a young horse, I think it's important that they kind of get used to it and stay stable with that.
Yeah.
What do you think, Phil?
Right. What I also like to do is maybe even lunge inside reins just to take the rider out of the picture.
Yeah.
And use that a little bit for my own information, so I can kind of watch the horse, watch how he's sort of interacting. Whereas, the side reins just, take all of the rider contact out of it and just saying, here's a stable piece of equipment that, it doesn't move, doesn't do anything weird, and just sort of look at it from that perspective.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So let me ask you, we kind of talked about, how you introduce a horse to a bit first. How do you go about introducing your curbs, your Weymouths, when you get to that point?
Oh, getting into the doubles.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, now we're talking. Well, I'm happy. I'll take this one first. So one thing that I'm very lucky here in Florida that I can almost always have a bit fitting fairly early in the horse's career, which I like, because when I go ahead and really start to say, okay, it's time for the double. And, I start to put the double in, fairly early. But with putting the double in also means I may hack them in it, just put it in the horse's mouth. And, there may be, in my recent one, Big Mike, he was 6 and he was showing a second level solidly, like a very solid second level. And I thought, okay, I think the double bridle is going to enhance where he is. And it did. It was actually very helpful. And I had also gotten a bit fitting done. So I knew the bits that I had were going to fit him. So I would, if you have that opportunity, I think that's really helpful, because then, okay, when I'm going to start with the horse, I know the bit I'm going to put him in is going to work and it's going to fit. And I think that's important if you have that opportunity. And then, I'll hack him in a little bit. Honestly, I have never really had a ton of problems with transitioning to doubles. I do feel like when I transition my students, I really make sure that they have good hands. I think that's actually something that you have to really talk about. You have to have very soft hands when you first initially introduce that to a horse. But again, I haven't had too much trouble. I start with a very soft curb. Vivianne, if you were just to start with a curb, which one would you if you didn't have a bit fitting, which one would you start with?
Well, we actually, one of our new bits is we call it the revolver, the revolving bit. That is such a kind bit. It's the one that has the moving side pieces. So it's extremely mild and it's extremely forgiving. So for somebody who's just starting to also either to introduce a curb and or getting themselves introduced to riding with, 2 reins and a double, that is would be a very, very appropriate bit. And that's now pretty widely available. We have, also can talk about then the shank, the 5 centimeters versus the 7 centimeters. So the 7 centimeter shank, obviously you have a little bit more leverage, but it is a little more forgiving as far as the rider's aids are concerned, as long as the rider isn't just using it, as a handbrake or pulling back all the time, because the 5 centimeter shank, your rein aids get to the horse's mouth so much quicker than in a 7 centimeter, right? So, I mean, there's so much you can talk about, but again, I think, a good bit fitter can also help. Then, of course, we also have a lot of people who buy already educated horses that sometimes come with a double. And a lot of times people are afraid to mess that up, and they buy that double bridle with their horse.
Yeah.
And don't ever even really look at the bits.
Right. And you know what? People have done that. And I've actually had dealers change the bits. So yeah,
and then send the horse,
and then send the horse
with actually a different combination of
bits. Yes, I have had that happen because I have taken the picture of the bits. So whenever I try a horse in Europe or try a horse, I actually always take a picture of it. If I can get the size, I do that. Like the size doesn't, I can size them, but I always, whenever I buy a horse from someone, I take the picture. And I have had different bits come from someone. They clean out their tack room and they literally put different bits on. So just as an FYI, be careful. Just because you get a horse with a bit, unless you know for sure that was its bits, just an FYI, I've had that happen.
Right. And if you are having a bitting issue with a new horse that's already come to you in a double, or all of a sudden you're having some issues and your horse is in a double bridle, go back to the snaffle. Go back and make sure the Bradoon is correct. Take the curb out of the equation, because a lot of times the problem, the issue, the core may lie in the Bradoon and not even be the curb. So it's good to separate the Weymouth from the Bradoon. Just find the correct Bradoon / snaffle again, and then add in the Weymouth again.
Well, I think with the rules the way they are now, and that you in national competitions can show all the way through Grand Prix in a snaffle, sometimes you have to ask yourself, what is the point of putting the double on? Or if I got my horse going really well in the snaffle, if I have no plans to compete internationally, maybe if it's not really necessary anymore. So I think that has to, enter in conversations with people and just the different thoughts about it, because they're making horses with really sensitive, small heads and sensitive mouths, much more than they were bred before, with a little bit more of a heavy horse influence and strong horses and strong mouths. And, we got lots of nice, fancy horses on the small side and who are sensitive enough, and then may never in their life
really
need it.
Refined heads. Yeah, exactly. With those really refined heads and smaller mouths. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's interesting, but I think it's just like, get a lot of information. Your trainer should be able to help you with that, and introducing the double. And I just wanted to say, Vivianne, about I think if people have listened to the show before, they've heard that I actually introduced this new bit to a horse that I ride and train, and how well it's gone since getting that revolver style Weymouth on him. So I just wanted to give my thumbs up to the new design of the bits coming from.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Phil, remind all of us, myself included, because my brain is small right now. What was your problem, and what did Vivianne help you fix?
Well, if people have listened to the show before, when we have Vivianne on, I was talking about a horse that I had introduced to the double, and he did not like the double I had on him. He was basically trying to spit out the combination of bits that I had on him, and so I sort of gave up on that idea and was riding him in the snaffle. Talked to Vivianne all about it, and she sent me this new revolver style Weymouth that I wanted to try on him, and it's been going well. So I ride him mostly in the snaffle now, and do the odd ride in the double, and I think that sort of is working for him. So I'm not going to mess with that, so much. And like I was just saying, he doesn't need to show internationally, maybe ever. So I just like to use the double on him a little bit for a tune-up, because he can get strong. But otherwise, the opening mouth, the spitting the bits out problem has been resolved, and
awesome.
and it's been really great. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So Vivianne, I got one more question, and I think we got to get
to this
one.
I'm like, wow, literally gone down so many tangents, and we've managed to answer one question. And I'm not even sure we answered that question.
Exactly.
Oh,
that's how popular you are.
Exactly.
So many questions. Well, bidding is hard. It's really a difficult. It's why we're doing these segments, because there's so many questions and so many variables that it's really tricky. So Phil, what's our next question?
Well, I want to get to this one last time because I think this is an important one, especially for anybody retraining a thoroughbred. And we know that on the track that they do a tongue tie a lot of times. And then when we're introducing them to a different world, a different riding, that we get a lot of tongue out, tongue to the side. The horse also with the idea of kind of spitting the bit out. So Vivianne, what's your experience with this? What kinds of bits do you think work with this, with these retraining thoroughbreds, or just again, horses with sensitive mouths?
The other thing that's really interesting about a lot of these off the track thoroughbreds that we deal with here is that, if you take a look at a horse when it's racing and when it's being trained to race, I mean, those jocks have very, very short reins and they're tight, and tighter reins, shorter reins means go faster. And then we put him in the dressage ring and we put him in the hunter jumper ring, and all of a sudden pulling back on the reins is supposed to mean slow down, right? So it's a very, very long, patient needing process. A lot of times you just really kind of need to, and I know a lot of people sort of, do the let down, I think is what it's called, of, once they get a thoroughbred off the track, they just sort of turn them out, but I think that I think that also helps in sort of rewiring their brain and gives you, you want to try to start with as clean of a slate as you can with these, horses that have raced. And it's not just the thoroughbreds, it's standard breds too. I've run into it with them as well. Where they've just, pulling means go. So you need to kind of help them out of that phase. So, a lot of times, the more relaxed you can be in your training, the slower you can go in your retraining, the better off you're going to be in the long term. Specifically, as far as bits are concerned, a lot of times I do find the single jointed bits more accepted by the thoroughbreds because they are so sensitive that sometimes the double joint can just be too much. It can just be overwhelming. And we always think, it's more friendly and it's, they can be, but they can also be too noisy for some of these really sensitive types.
That makes sense. So what would you start them in? What would, like, if you were just to blanket say, I would try to start them in X?
I would most likely go with a single jointed dynamic RS, probably egg butt, because that is one of the quietest, mildest bits to start with. The other option I would maybe take a look at are the duo bits or the nace bits, which are also can be extremely friendly towards the horses, and it's a different material, right? It's not the metal. So those three options would be three options to kind of start with.
Ah, fantastic. Actually, I just wrote those down for my assistant. I'm handing her the sticky when she comes in the door here in a minute. That's perfect. I'm like, let's try these.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. I love it. Well, Vivianne, we seriously could keep you on all night, and we love how you answer our questions. And our listeners, please send us questions. But if our listeners would like to contact you off air, how do they do that?
They can go to the Sprenger website and we can get in touch that way. They can also still continue to get in touch with me via you, both.
Fantastic.
Your show.
Yeah, no, we love it. Fantastic. Well, again, that's Reese at Horse Radio Network or Philip at Horse Radio Network, and we will make sure they get to Vivianne. So Vivianne, thanks so much as always for coming on the show. We love your segment and we look forward to chatting with you soon.
All right. Take care, guys. Thank you.
Well, Phil, I can tell you I'm getting a lot of use out of my stability stirrup leathers right now. And so are my ladies, Karen and Susan. Susan just ordered a pair this week. They are loving the slim stability stirrup leathers. We have, Justin was awesome. I had wanted to try them because a lot of people had asked us, and Justin's very generous to us, and he sent us a pair. And I will tell you, we're very, very happy with that. With this, the slim, which the buckle is lower. I like the original, but I'm a little bit old school that way. But my ladies who are slimmer, they really like the buckle on the bottom. And they like that their leg can stay a little bit more against the saddle. So I'm very happy to report that I like both of them. I think you have to decide which one you like better. If you don't like a buckle under your thigh, then go for the slim stability stirrup leather. But I've been very, very happy.
The beauty here, Reese, is that you can order, both kinds, and you get to try them for 30 days.
Yeah.
And you can return them, for no charge, and you can figure out what you like best. I really like that about Justin, and all the products have that money back guarantee policy. So that's great. I have to say that we were just doing some saddle fittings here in the barn up north as we're preparing for our show season. And the store that we use for our saddle fittings is Bar Saddlery, and they carry all of the Total Saddle Fit products, which makes it really easy, for buying the leathers for my students and all of that great stuff. So I have to give a little shout out to Bar Saddlery and Jeff over there that does our saddle fittings. So really happy with that. Really happy with Total Saddle Fit has been a sponsor of ours for a couple of years now. We have to give a thanks to them and a thanks for coming out with all sorts of great products that we can happily endorse and use every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have any questions about the Total Saddle Fit products, they're really easy to get in touch with. You can email them, but check out totalsaddlefit.com.
This week's dressage training tip is brought to you by Total Saddle Fit, home of the shoulder relief girth at totalsaddlefit.com.
Well, and Phil, we have a listener question from, I think, Facebook, right? What you got for us? I don't even know. It's like dealer's choice.
Well, we have this question from Nicole from our Facebook page. So sometimes we're not great about checking that, but we do get to it and get to the messages. And
what are you talking about? I'm great. I check it all the time.
Oh, okay. Well, then Phil. You're great, and I'm not great. Sorry. I'm not great.
No, we do watch that Facebook page. I'm kidding. We don't always get to the questions online, but we do watch it.
Yeah, great. So here we go from Nicole. She has a question that we can maybe help her with it. She has a horse working second level and has a left hind versus right hind strength issue. Left hind's a little weaker. It's making a difference in the left shoulder in versus the right shoulder in, walk canter transitions, basically everything. If you have a hind leg, one that works better than the other ones, it's gonna show up in all of the work. So, and also I guess in wear patterns in the left hind shoe.
Okay.
Says ground poles are great for strengthening hind legs. There are a few extras to try, but wondering if we had any other sort of advice or exercises for that left hind leg. So I'm going to throw it to you, Reese. Here,
okay.
I think
throw it to me. Yeah, absolutely. I'll take a first stab at it, and then I know you'll have some awesome things. So that is tricky. I will say that every horse has a strong and a weak hind leg, so it's not unusual. However, I have dealt with this particular problem with the left hind leg. Actually, I will always say if there's one left hind leg that's weaker, I always do make sure that the vet has had a crack at it, because interestingly enough, it probably happened when they were younger, potentially that's that weak. So that's just one thing I like to always say, like, make sure your vet's checked it out, and that there's no tear, et cetera, in the leg. But in general, when you have a weaker hind leg, you always have, one side or the other that's weaker. Number one, it is important to work on straightness, and acknowledging the fact that is weaker. So also, I'm blessed. I'm from Kentucky. And so if I have a weaker hind leg, I always put that horse on the hills if I can. When I'm in Florida, it's a little bit different. It's very flat here. There's zero hill where we are. So then you do have to go to work. So I like to think of that hind leg as always kind of paying attention to it. I like the fact that you do ground poles. I think cavalettis are also very helpful. And I like a raised cavaletti for that. And I would put that horse, for example, I'd put the raised cavaletti, one side up, one side down. And I would do a lot of work going to the right on that particular cavaletti with the higher pole on the outside. So it'd be the left hind leg that has to lift his leg there. That is helpful. It can be very helpful. You can do it in walk and trot. I would also do a little bit of turn in the forehand work where you're really teaching that horse to engage that particular hind leg. I also think that shoulder 4, shoulder in is also good because you're isolating that hind leg and driving it to the outside rein. So I think that that's also a very good exercise. So those are some exercises I would be paying attention to. Phil, do you want to pop in here now?
Sure. I mean, you have to understand that in dressage, you're basically always working the hind legs. So every exercise that you do, where you and particularly the exercise where you're noticing the difference, then you're already doing the work that's going to kind of fix the problem. What you have to really pay attention to is the quality of your exercises. And I think, like Reese said, the quality of the alignment of your horse, because you're not going to strengthen the left hind leg. If you do, let's say you're doing shoulder in to the left, you notice that it's a problem. The horse will be particularly good at finding evasions to working the weaker hind leg. So if you're doing left shoulder in, and the horse has figured out that if he pops the right shoulder, then the work becomes a little bit easier for them. Then you're not going to be strengthening the hind leg. Does that make sense to you, Reese?
Yeah. Oh, no, I think that's really critical. Really, really, really pay attention to the quality of the movements that you're doing to the left, and be strict with the horse about the quality of the alignments that you're working on. So you're not allowing the right shoulder to pop out when you're doing a shoulder in or when you're doing your walk canter transitions, because the horses can be really sneaky. Yep.
And find different little evasions, different little ways to make the work easier.
And Phil, I've got kind of an analogy for that. Think of a water hose. You want the horse to be in alignment like a water hose. But if there's any, when you're trying to really align that horse with, like, say, the left hind in this case, if there is any kind of weakness in that hose, like the right shoulder, which would be the typical one, the water's going to try to run right for that weakness in the hose. So you've got to then make sure that there's a wall.
There's no leak.
There's no leak. Exactly. You can't have a leak, right? Because as soon as there's a leak, boom, that horse is going to go for it. Which, think about it. Like if you're weak and you're doing squats at the gym, for example, and I don't like squats. I have a leak in my right knee. So I'll try to position myself any way I can to not be positioned correctly. So I have to have a trained professional there to say, make yourself straighter there. So because I'm going to try to run out the leaky hose, essentially, make my life easier. So that's always the case with a horse that's weak. Well, and again, every horse is going to have a weak and a stiffer and a stronger side. It's just the way we are, the way horses are. So you've got to really pay attention to that. And you said it, and I'm just going to say it again, is quality versus quantity, right? It's just like anything. If you're really weak and you go to the gym and you do 25, bicep curls, for example, the next day you may not be able to do 10 bicep curls, because you've worked that muscle. So you've got to be careful that you don't make a horse too sore when you're working. So it's really a balance, actually.
It's a tough project. And, with the same sort of analogy, you don't want to be lifting too much weight, and a horse, if you're trying to really focus on making an angle in a shoulder in, you can overdo that angle. Yeah. You can certainly, what I tend to do with a horse that may be a little bit weaker is be on less of a 3-track, for sure not a 4-track, so that I'm trying to make the work better quality, that you can sustain it for a little bit longer, rather than saying, okay, I'm gonna have to really overdo my angle here in the shoulder in. And that's what happens with a lot of people, because they think, okay, the more angle, the better, but you end up allowing the shoulder out through the right while you're in your shoulder into the left. So I want to see the horse be a little bit less angled, with making a better quality shoulder in, with better energy, than making the horse struggle with over angling the problem and trying to do a little bit too much. So you have to think about these things as you're doing the movements that are going to solve your problem. But think about, how am I doing the movements? What am I focusing on? Can I get a little bit better alignment? And then, can I go shoulder into renvers and then back to shoulder? And that's that's what really helps me check whether my angle is correct, is if I can change the bend throughout my shoulder in, back to renvers, back to shoulder in, and not lose my tempo or my feeling of balance throughout that.
And that is hard to do.
That's really hard to do.
That is really hard to do, especially
if
you have
you
a horse
think it's easy, go ahead and do it on a center line.
Yeah. Get yourself off the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's a little bit our advice, is the quality of you're already doing the work that's going to fix the problem. Now really try to feel like you can make it better quality, and your horse's hind leg will get stronger.
Yeah.
Promise.
Absolutely. Yeah, promise. But keep us up to date. We love to hear, and then things that worked for you. It's always great, and we may use it in our own program.
Yeah, and shoot us a video. Yeah. We can do a little bit of critique, and maybe we can help out a little bit further.
Yeah, you're always welcome.
We your alignments, in this world of technology, and while we're sitting at home here, having no sports to watch, especially for me, because
for Phil, what are you gonna do, Phil?
I don't know.
Goodness.
We welcome videos. We welcome more discussions on these topics. Further explanations might be needed. Let us know.
Let us know. We love it. Well, as always, we love email and Facebook shout outs. And Phil and I teach. And if you're around us at all or want us to come take a look at your horses, never feel bad about sending us an email. I've got some students, some listeners here in Wellington, and it's been so fun to get to know them as well. So we love it. So as always, you can find our show notes and links to today's guests on our website, dressageradio.com. Like us on Facebook, just search Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. My website is maplecrestfarmky.com, and my email is reese@horseradionetwork.com.
I think the best way that you can find me is through Facebook or my email, philip@horseradionetwork.com. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week for allowing us to put on a show. And don't forget to check out all the other shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com, including a little bit of coronavirus coverage coming to you pretty much every day from Glenn. So listen in.
Listen in. Well, everybody, keep your heels down, your shoulders back, get your hand sanitizer and your wipes, and we will talk to you next week.